Hi. Coronavirus has pretty much wiped out our live events this year. But you know what? Something has just changed, and we're here to give you some good news for a change. I'm Andrew Vine. I'm the founder and CEO of the Insight Bureau and author of the book, Honestly Speaking.
And I'm Fredrik Haren, the creativity explorer and also the man behind professionalspeaking.com. So, Andrew, what's this silver lining that you're talking about?
Well, look, for a very long time, we didn't have conversations to anyone about anything. It was almost like everyone around the world simultaneously put their finger on the pause button. But something has changed. I think we had that expectation that things would just bounce back to normal by September and October. And clearly that's not the case. But what people have worked out is they just can't neglect their customers or their people inside their organizations any longer. And they realize that embracing virtual events is the only game in town.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's fascinating to see. The event industry, of course, has been suffering terribly, but it's fascinating to see how suddenly speaking requests are coming back. The event industry is still dead. Speaking coming back and coming back quite strongly, I would say. I look at the number of speaking bookings that has coming to me the last couple of weeks, and we're talking about global conferences, international conferences, top management conferences, newly promoted people to encourage them. All those. The only one I would say that we're still seeing is kind of dead is the client events. That's not happening yet. But the other international and global conferences, they need to happen, and now people are saying, okay, we can't do it in person. Let's do it virtually. And if we're doing the conference, we still need a speaker. We don't need the catering, we don't need the hotel, but we still need a speaker. That's great news.
It is. Look, I think we all agree that nothing ever replaces the human connection when you get together. But if it's just not possible, if we've just got these travel bans and distancing and all these other restrictions, we've just got to get on with life, and we've got to find a way of living in this new medium. So people say, well, what's changed? Well, pretty much nothing has changed in my mind, except the way we do things. We've just got to be more agile. I think it's true to say that a lot of speakers were concerned that maybe, how am I going to adapt? A lot of clients are really, even though we've had this technology for a while, they hadn't been used to learning how to do things virtually, getting the kit, learning how to use it, but they have now. We've had a lot of experimenting. Now is the time to try and get all this level of activity back on track.
Yeah, so I think that's a great news. I also think an interesting observation is that for a while, the speaker industry was very confused and said, what's going on? Suddenly there are no speeches. So now that means I need to start doing free things on the internet. Like the explosion of free webinars that we saw for the last couple of months was, I would say, quite disappointing, because we thought it was like a race to the bottom kind of a feeling. I never understood why that happened. When it comes to speaking in person, there's always been a bunch of events where everyone spoke for free, and there's always been conferences where some people speak for free and some people don't. The people who do speak for a fee, they are the professional speakers. So why suddenly professional speakers thought that if the speaking medium goes over to virtual, suddenly everyone should be speaking for free? I never understood that, and I never took part of that as a thing. And what I'm seeing now is that also some of the clients thought that would be the case, but now clients have had a lot of uninteresting, uninspiring webinars, and they realize, okay, there is a difference with someone who speaks professionally, and it's worth paying the fee to get that speaker in the beginning of the conference or at the end of the conference, and to get this create this common experience.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I think clients could have been forgiven initially for being hesitant and not really necessarily seeing the value, thinking we'll just do something on the web to tide us over, not thinking that this is actually the real thing. And I think I talk about the real world of events as well. And, there's so many out there, and 90-something% of them don't have external or paid for speakers. But the ones that do are run by those who realize that they have to put that extra investment in place to draw in a crowd in the first place and to wow the crowd on the day. Nobody will come if it's not going to be engaging, if it's not going to teach you something, if it doesn't give you those takeaways. We've just got to work a little harder sometimes in being able to curate these events, but the essence is still the same. And I think, that's the big change. I think, like I say, putting your finger on the pause button, I think the other pause button that's being lifted is the investment one. They realize that it's no different, really. You're going to get what you pay for. You're going to, if you need to build an event around a certain person, well, there's different ways of doing it. You can pre-record, you can have people live, you can bring people in and create the interactivity. There are things that you can do to approximate what you would have done in the real world.
Yes, and I also find it fascinating that the whole industry has developed. We have created kind of like a language for what a virtual speech looks like and what the experience should be like. And that also enhances the experience of attending a virtual speech. So that's another great thing. The value of a virtual speech today versus 6 months ago, I would say, is much higher, much more engaging, much more interesting, because speakers and audience have understood that this is what this should look like. So I think that is great news.
Look, I think, honestly speaking, as I say, I think that everyone is looking forward to the opportunity to get back together in person. And this is kind of a segue onto, I think, what we need to think about in terms of where we go from here. Because, once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. Like, we've learned how some advantages to these virtual events that we're now running are very obvious. Do they absolutely replace getting together? No, but could they enhance the experience? Do we have more options? Perhaps the way forward is to perhaps be designing events which by definition are more hybrid, that have an element of in-person and have the ability to expand and to project those insights and those messages across to a wider audience and to involve people who couldn't otherwise have been involved. We could say this is quite a very interesting innovation.
Yes, and I agree. And I think we're going to see that a lot of conferences that people thought they had to do in person is now going to be virtual. Like one of the speeches I recently did was for a global network where they would come together every year and meet, but now they did it virtually and they didn't think it would work. But you had 120 top executives coming together and meeting virtually, and that's more than they would have had if they would have had it an in-person conference, because not everyone would take the time to fly and the cost of that. And when we were talking budget, they said, we have no flights, we have no venue, we have no catering, we have no hotels. We've saved so much on this event, and still we get almost the same experience as we would have. Of course, we don't have the dinner and the networking and all of that. On the other hand, we get many more of the partners joining, so that everyone can get the same experience from the information we were delivering and from what the keynote speakers were delivering. And they were very happy with this conference. And who knows, maybe next year, going forward, every other one will be in person, every other one will be virtual, or every year there will be an in-person, and every year there will also be a virtual version. So we have now 2 meetings every year instead of 1, which actually, from a speaking perspective, open up more opportunities for keynote speakers.
Yes, you know what? I think it's going to be a mix, as you say just now. I think, when it can be done safely, which may not be for a while, I do think that there will be a very strong return to real events. But you're going to have to justify this. I think if you do, you run a sales team and you run around the region, maybe you don't need to do that quite so much. If you're bringing people together on a training and development program, some elements of this can be done virtually, as you say, but occasionally, maybe more discerningly, you will pick and choose the moments that you want to do real and have a mix in the course of the year. So I think we probably will never quite go back to the way things were, but are we going to go fully back and abandon what we've just learned over the last few months? No, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think we build that into our capabilities, extra tools in the toolkit, as they say.
So, Andrew, what advice would you give to clients moving forward?
Well, look, this is the time that we have to recognize that this is going to go on for a while. And so we better get used to the virtual world, get good at it, practice it, and think about it as just another way of achieving the same results. You really got to invest some time and money into this to do it properly, to stand head and shoulders above your competitors if you're out there in the market for clients, but also to do something really effective and really engaging and really worthwhile. It doesn't just come easily. You're going to have to work at it, but it's going to be worth it. And we're already seeing some very good results.
And for me, I would like to say for speakers, first of all, obviously, invest in the technology needed to develop online speeches, but I'm going to guess you have done that already. And my other advice would be to really go back to your clients and explain to them that other clients are already doing this now. That we have passed the phase of waiting, and we are now in the execution phase. We need to start doing the events again. And my experience is that a lot of clients can very easily be pushed over the edge and say, you know what, yeah, you're right, we should do an event. I have multiple examples of clients when I reach out to them saying, why don't you do a virtual event instead? They say, yeah, maybe we should. And a couple of weeks later, they have a virtual event going. And that's the good news. It's actually quite fast and quite easy to organize a virtual event versus having everyone book their flights and book their calendars to be away from traveling and be away from home. So that would be my advice. We need to lead. We need to educate our clients and get them ready for the world we are in now, which is the world of virtual events happening right now.
Yeah. It's a little bit like we have to not only think about the world that we're in, we have to think about the world we want to be in. And it's not useful to believe that this is a disaster and it's not going to work. You know, we just have to get ourselves calibrated for a new way of doing things. And you know what? When things come back, we're going to be richer for the exercise, I think.
Yeah, and also it's kind of a herd mentality. That's how a lot of events get canceled because other companies heard that other companies were canceling events and they didn't want to take a risk that someone else was taking. So now when clients are hearing it, other clients are actually doing events, the same thing will happen. I actually think we'll see the same even for client events. I've just recently started to see some requests for client events happening. And when other companies hear that their competitors are doing events for their clients, even if they are virtual, they're also going to jump on the bandwagon and do their own events, or they're going to be missing out. Yeah. So to get the industry going again is to get the industry to understand that the industry has actually started to move already.
I know that you'll agree with me that if people out there have got questions and ideas and things they want to get some advice, by all means get in touch with us and we'll help you out and let you know some of the things that we're facing in our world and give you some examples of things that have been done very well.
Absolutely. So I think that we can wrap that up. That is the summary of what's happening in the speaking industry right now. Some positive news in months of negative news. And let's hope that this trend continues.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fredrik. Great talking to you.
Thank you.